All right, in this video I just want to kind of go over what I would call our setter-up defense and our various rotations that I'm doing with the high school, and I think you can apply these at the lower levels, and in fact they work much better at the lower levels even than they do at the high school level. What I've found is as teams are better able to control strong hits, in particular areas, that this tends to break down as the tempos of their sets get faster and the blocks don't close as well. Things like that can sometimes make this a little bit more difficult. But this is by far the best defense that I have seen work at the middle school through, mid to upper high school offenses that we play against. So let's start in rotation 1, and I'm going to kind of ignore the receive formation. I'm going to mostly focus on what we look like when the defense is playing and the attackers are coming at us. Okay, so let's start with what we would have happening if we were in a position where we have a couple blockers here. Now, in traditional perimeter defense, we might have a setter here, and then we'll have middle back sometimes there, left back here, and then this off front row player would kind of pull back and play some defense, maybe pick up the tip over here or in the donut. What we're going to do instead is we're going to prioritize having our setter, who is oftentimes very, very good at playing balls, because they are one of our more athletic players. We're going to have them be coming up to front. So Annika is my setter, and she is now in a position, basically in our base defense. If we were looking at base defense, we would pretty much want our defenders in the back, kind of on the corners here, and our setter would be basically at about the 15-foot line, and their primary goal is to be able to move back and forth based upon where the set goes. So if the set were to come over here to our left, then she would come over here. If the set were to go to our right, she would go over here. She's playing defense in a position where that donut, which traditionally drives us all crazy, is something where she can pick it up, and she can get it up and set that ball immediately for an attack on 2 if she wants, or she gets it up nice and high. If you have an offsetter that plays in your front row right position, she can come up and set that. Or if you do what we do at the high school level, we have our libero then sneak in and then set balls so that we have potentially 3 hitters to go attack that ball. But the thing that I love, there's a couple of things I love about this defense besides our setter being able to kind of rotate and pick up all the junk that comes around, is that it allows our defensive players who are in the corners to have a very, very good vision of what's happening as the ball is being attacked. So for instance, let's say we get a double block over here. Our right back position here is in a great spot for when that ball comes. They have great vision. They can read, and because they're starting a little bit deeper, they can cover a lot of court. A lot of times what we have happening when we play a defender right here is that ball goes deep, then they can't get backwards so easily, right? And so they're kind of here, they're kind of like, okay, I can hit balls here, and they don't even really get the tip very much because they're kind of stuck in their heels. We start them back here, and we have a split step at the moment that that hitter is about to hit the ball. They are taking a small split step and ready to come forward. Same thing would happen over here. This player that we tend to have move over depending upon what's happening on the other side of the net. If we see that that middle blocker is not going to be closing, then this player is going to be coming in so that they can shade, they can find that spot. So we've got a player here, our setter typically, who's able to pick up the short stuff in this area at this point. She starts here, and she's probably coming in for the short. And then if this block is not closing, then this player is scooching over to take that seam. Of course, this off hitter is going to be pulling back, or off blocker is going to be pulling back and being ready for the hard angle hits that come over in this area. So this is a good way to defend even in a situation where the block doesn't close. I will say that at the higher levels, at the high school level, this push over here when this blocker doesn't close can be a little bit scary for this setter who's playing defense. They've got to have their hands up, because if this big outside crushes the ball right between and really shallow, then this girl can be up for a surprise if she's not ready for a fast attack. So she does have to have her hands up in situations like this in case there is a fast attack coming right at her. But let's go ahead and let's go back here. Let's assume that we are playing at like a lower level, middle school level. Then I would pull these girls in a little bit more, okay? Again, the more, if you guys watch heat maps or look at heat maps for where balls tend to fall in the middle of the court, pretty much at every level. But the middle school level, I find they'd fall in here way more often. So you pull these girls in. This girl's picking up all the stuff in here, probably some of the shorter stuff as well. Maybe she's not at the 15-foot line. Maybe she's coming up a little closer to the 10-foot line. And these girls pinch in more because at the middle school level, you have even fewer balls that are going to be catching them deep. Not a lot of balls go deep. And so sometimes you pull these girls in, maybe almost like if you were playing a doubles, pass and serve receive kind of a thing. Now these girls are covering all the area here that they can, all the area here that we can. And of course, this girl is still pulling back and playing a little defense here. In middle school, you might not even get a double block up all the time, right? So if that's the case, this girl could pull off and you could play something a little bit more like this. So great defense at the middle school level, especially because of what's typically going to happen with your middle school players and where they tend to play or attack on the offense. All right, so let's come over to a play where the setter is going to move over to the left. So the block comes over here. Our setter is at that 15-foot line. Remember to teach your setters to find their view of the hitter first. Okay, so she's ready for the first ball attack if the ball comes over on one. She's ready for the second ball if the setter's ready to dump. She's got to pick all the dump stuff up here, right? And on that third attack, she needs to have a view. So she hopefully will find the view of their hitter as the set goes back. She finds the view of the hitter here, and she's making her read. And then by the time the middle has closed, she hopefully has her read already, where she can then come in and, she was tipping, and she can pick all this stuff up in this area here, or she can see that she's tipping here, or maybe she sees that the ball is going to be moving in this direction. This girl's got to come over for that hard cross shot, but she can't probably move straight back here. You got to pull her back in like this. So that way she has the opportunity to defend a hard cross shot back here, because this player right here is staying either deep, or if she's in the read, she's going to be the one that comes over. We typically have all of our line girls stay on the line, and she makes her read purely in this area here. If she gets covered up by the block, and so we got a great block blocking the line, then this defender can be in go. What we like to say is you need to be in a position where you're not taking the hard hit, and so you should be coming forward in go, ready to pick up all the trash or shots and things like that. And so as long as there's a little bit of line left where that set is coming outside the block and attacking the ball here, this girl should still be back here. She split steps as soon as that ball is about to be hit, and then she's coming in if she sees that tip, or if she sees a big hit, then she's probably just taking a couple steps in and then getting ready for the hard contact. Again, this girl is going to be staying in defense in the corner until she sees, that ball is open here, and they're probably not going to close the block, so she starts to step in as she reads that block is not closing in time, so that she can have that ball that's more in the middle of the court. And that's what I find even at the high school level. Very few balls end up coming to the opposite corner, and so it's always best to have this opposite corner player shift a little bit toward the middle and pick up the middle attack. okay, because this is probably one of the least hit locations on the entire court. Not really great to have her stand there and wait for the ball that's not going to come. So she's got to be starting here where she can see the entire view of the entire set of hitters on the other side and what they're doing, and then she can make her move either up in this area if she sees the hitter coming that way, or over in this area if she sees that block not closing. So she can make a good read from that spot. And again, that setter is the only time you really have to worry is if she's like coming straight across right here while this girl's in a read here. You want to make sure that that setter is kind of crashing. If she sees the tip, she's crashing for the shorter tip. And then this girl, if she's also in the read, will crash for the tip that's probably a little bit more along the line. This is a basic idea of the setter up defense. Let's talk about what happens if there's a middle attack. Your setter is in this spot here, and if that attack is coming in the middle, the big thing she's got to do is kind of look at the hitter and the direction that the hitter is moving, and she needs to try to take a step in the direction that the hitter is moving. So if my blocker is coming over here and this hitter is coming in this direction, I hope my setter is reading that and taking a step here. Okay, if the maybe the middle is coming back and she's swinging around to the backside, and this blocker is going to be a little bit behind, then she's still taking a step in this direction, right? However, if the hitter is coming over in this direction and my middle blocker isn't going to close enough, then hopefully she's taking a step in this direction. So it's a big read position for that setter to be able to move back and forth. But again, usually these are some of your most athletic, some of your best players, and so they're in a good position to do that. And again, I would definitely suggest if the other team ever gives us free balls that this setter just steps in, immediately sets a ball to one of the pin hitters so that this pin hitter is ready to transition and hit right away, right? So like she comes in, she sets it immediately instead of looking for three contacts. This hitter pulls back and then attacks right away. We like to call that the Jaguar. If we can attack on two on that second contact, we'll call that the Jaguar. The other thing that we tend to have happen, which is probably one of the more awkward positions that we see, is what happens if we have a back row attack. And again, probably not as much at the middle school level. At the upper high school levels, you'll see a back row attack taking place sometimes. And in this case, the setter has to just drop back from their middle back position where they're kind of in base. Because remember, they're in base here, so they can go either direction depending upon the direction of the set, right? And so they pull back here to about 2/3 back, almost like a serve receive. The corner girls step up to about that 2/3 spot as well, and so they play defense from the line out to in, right? And then the setter takes that middle spot, and again, this is where if the setter does take that first ball, she gets it up high, nice in the middle of the court. And for high school, our libero steps in and gets that ball. And again, the libero, I don't need to have her in one particular place or another. We might have these two girls switch, right? Like, so maybe I have my libero stepping in from this side and then being ready to set. What I typically do with my libero is I scout the other team and I see what direction the other team is typically likely to hit, and I put my libero in that spot, so that if they typically hit angle most of the time, then I'll probably put my libero in the angle so she's in that place where she can read and pick up balls. If they hit line, then I'll probably put her over here on the line spot. So we try to get our best defender in the place where they hit the most shots. This one's a kind of a weird one. If you have to, step back as a setter and play that back row attack from right here, it's a little bit weird, but we don't want her just to stand there and let the back row attack happen, because if that back row attack happens and it hits right here in the middle of the court, then we're in trouble, right? So, we don't want middle back to be an open spot, and that's, with the block, you get a single block up there, but the back row attack usually kind of shoots the ball over the block, and so that ends up being a weakness. So we have to have her drop back so she can put her hands on that high loopy shot that's going middle back. The setter takes that ball, so that's her obligation on those middle back attacks from the back row. So anyway, I think that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we would do in a situation where we have a setter up defense, and again, love this defense, and you can't teach them just one defense at the high school level. At the high school level, I always want to make sure they have a couple defenses so they can switch mid-game, and when a certain defense isn't working, then we switch mid-game, and usually if we switch from this to perimeter, it's kind of exactly the opposite of perimeter, and so it works great, right? Like, so if this is our spots on setter up, you'll notice that in perimeter, we come back. Of course, that's not the setter there, but we would come back and we have basically the exact opposite look on a perimeter defense. And so usually if you have something that's kind of beating you in one particular attacking system from the opponent, your defense doesn't work on that. If you switch to the opposite, which here we're switching from setter up to perimeter, then usually your perimeter is going to suddenly start picking up all the balls. Can really frustrate the opponents. When you switch mid-game, then they don't know exactly what's happening. But again, setter up is great. One of the great reasons it is great is for those teams that tip a lot. You just have your setter commit to really picking up the tips, and if you don't want to have your setter get taken out and they are just tipping, I would suggest taking your libero and doing the same thing, but have your libero pick up all those tips. And of course, if they're all only pretty much tipping, then you can kind of bring these girls in a little bit, and so your libero is picking up all these tips, and then your setter is able to release and do what she needs to do. But again, you can modify this defense as you need to, depending upon your opponent, right? And so the one thing I would say is that if you do keep your setter way back here, that's what I typically don't do so much, because it takes a long time for her to release if she is in this back position, and so that's one of the reasons I typically wouldn't have this girl if you had a couple really good defensive players. You could have one that was going back and forth, who's not your libero maybe, and then your libero steps into set, or vice versa. If you have somebody who's a good setter, you could have your libero do this, and then if you wanted to keep your setter back here for whatever reason, then you could have the other girl set as that libero picked it up. Anyway, lots of different options. I hope you understand what I'm talking about here, and if you have any questions, let me know. All right. This is Coach Power signing off.